to give you a quick overview of what we discovered when I first met Samantha. She sat down at my booth at Contact in the Desert UFO conference in California. One of the most fascinating past life stories I'd ever heard came through in her reading, where I, as the medium and the psychic, saw a post apocalyptic pre-Egyptian time, the era of the pyramids. Saw these Bedouin nomads on camels crossing the desert and coming upon the pyramids as if they never knew about them and were amazed to find them. And all of the sand of this post-apocalyptic event left just sand hanging in the atmosphere. The sun was setting and it was a bright red sun caused by all the sand in the atmosphere. It created that effect, just as a Los Angeles sun in the 70s set through all that smog. Samantha had been one of those nomads that had come across the pyramids, and an Anunnaki ghost dove into her body, occupied her body, and she became a pharaoh, a dictator, having to live just in this tiny little portion of her own body as this Anunnaki took over her body and rose to power and led war and the life of power, the life of dictatorship and destruction. And she had to sit in horror observing this turn of events, no longer able to occupy her own body. This much more powerful being had taken over her body.
We last left off was that we said I had become a pharaoh. It's like I had gone from nothing into everything over the course of a lifetime. We're not sure which pharaoh, but it feels like there's more details to come.
Okay, let's see what more information we can get. So God says, fascinating tale is yet to come in this story, because we haven't talked about what led to the apocalypse
Mm.
that wiped out the Anunnaki, and talked about why their ghosts remained in order that they could inhabit or possess a human. We also haven't talked about why it led to your suicide. The horror of power and dictatorship led to your suicide, because you were constantly trying to murder yourself, and the Anunnaki who inhabited you would be far too strong. It'd be a disaster for your soul and for someone else, as this Anunnaki would just move from one soul to another. The time had to be right for you to depart so that your soul wasn't destroyed in the process of that departure. So we'd like to go to the era of the apocalypse, the era that actually destroyed the Anunnaki era. I know they're projecting some images in my mind right now, so I can set the scene. Something to do with the sun. They're showing me planets that were once behind the sun, at least from the Earth's view, but always behind the sun. There was a similar rotation that occurred. And then somehow that lineup of planets behind the sun at certain points of the solstice would create what looked like a giant star. It would align in the winter solstice and brighten the night sky like a second sun. The earth was a giant earthquake, gigantic earthquake that changed the axis of the earth. Yes, I'm getting confirmation of that. Changed the axis of the earth, and that midnight sun star alignment was no longer, which changed the power structure of the Anunnaki. They could no longer claim a divine right, a divine position. Somehow that alignment gave them power over people, and they were worshiped, though they were not the gods they said they were. They were giants, terrifying giants. They entered space and time very differently than mere mortals birthing and dying. They were able to traverse pockets of sound, pockets of sound.
Like a black hole?
More like a portal could open up and they stepped
Oh.
through it. But that portal was produced using sound.
Hmm.
It was a portal produced through light and sound. They were essentially shipwrecked on Earth. The portal couldn't open from the other side, and they dwelled in hiding for a very long time until they built these pyramids and became a portal. That became a portal culture. They didn't have a society on Earth. They had an Earth portal, and the pyramids were built for that transport. Uh, they became shipwrecked and died. Somehow the portal didn't reopen. When the after the earthquake, somehow changing the Earth's axis, the eruption was just a huge chaotic Earth-based event, destroyed their technology, making it impossible for them to return. So they died there.
They did something with sound and light, so they didn't have the light the same way, so the portal didn't work. So they became like these shipwrecked musicians.
So this midnight sun that would occur between the aligning of these planets would create some kind of refraction of light, and then the sounds.
So it's this midnight sun they were using with sound to make their portals. It wasn't just the sun itself. It was the refraction.
God says that the light opens the way, the sound opens the portal. Light opens the way, sound opens the portal. That's a physics problem. Like, it's not just a beam of luminescence, it's actually a structure. Light is a structure. So that structure is what opens the way. It penetrates the atmosphere.
Mhm.
As that atmosphere is penetrated, sound opens the portal. They could no longer go back and forth after that, the big earthquake. It was a series of earthquakes. Yes, series of earthquakes. But you said they didn't have a society here, but that they were worshipped. Is there anything we could compare that to? White people in Africa ages ago did not dwell in Africa. They traveled back and forth to Africa. They were seen as some kind of high level spirits, similar. with the natives when the Anunnaki traveled. So somehow they're showing me this image of somehow they are responsible for the whole Pharaoh class.
So would
And
they elevate these people to be leaders? Like a middle management role then? Like I'm thinking more in terms of like a modern day company where it's no one's gonna see the CEO, but you have these managers that interface with employees, right? So it seems like that kind of structure.
and it's a lot like in Star Wars, Darth Vader would be like the Pharaoh,
Mhm,
and then Snoke, the big, tall,
mhm,
humanoid giant, would be like the Anunnaki.
mhm.
So
So
he answered to that. And that's also what gave the pharaohs a certain amount of divine power and influence. Eventually, the pharaohs broke off in their own autonomy, but before that, they were beholden to the Anunnaki for their power.
mhm,
And there was ritualistic initiations. This would be like the origin of true occult practice, where there's almost shamanic level initiations to enter a divine rite of passage. With regard to Samantha, then, when she was the Bedouin nomad, what was the process of her rise to power? Murder? I get glimpses of your experience as a soul in during that time. And the most prominent feelings are a very simple man, a man who's got goats and is very simple. And so when he's taken over by the Anunnaki, he sits in horror watching himself become incredibly different. He becomes hyper aware, hyper intelligent, uh, highly capable, an extraordinary human being beyond most humans, even more than that top 1% of leaders. Someone who's capable of seeing a vast nothingness and see opportunity in it to be king. It's a profoundly different thing. And it's a profoundly different personality, two different personalities and capacities. And of course, the higher, more intelligent one educates the simpler one vicariously. At the same time you're horrified, you're also being trained, and you turn into a highly trained assassin and strategist, dictator, commanding presence, a commanding leader. Even when the Anunnaki slept and you could awaken in their sleep in your own body, it would be like someone next to you wanting to murder your lover as they slept, because that relationship being so intimate, it's between you as a soul and the Anunnaki as a soul cohabiting that body. I can hear the sound of the Anunnaki breathing in deep sleep and being fully awakened as the soul, hearing them sleep in your body. Have you ever woken yourself up in a snore or a
Yeah.
loud
Yeah,
breathing? You can hear the breathing of your body, not you breathing.
that's weird.
So weird. So
It's
weird.
so weird. That's hard to even wrap my head around.
You can't wrap your head around it. You're in the experience of it. As I'm psychically experiencing your soul's experience, there's no rational translation of this
Mhm.
because it doesn't fit within our understanding of one soul, one body. But I have more than once come across some form of cohabitation, soul cohabitation. It's not common by any means, it's very rare, but it happens where a soul is cohabited with usually extraterrestrial or something of a higher intelligence that understands the nature of the soul body connection, science,
Yeah.
physics, and is able to manipulate it as we might manipulate brain surgery,
Mm.
soul surgery,
Huh.
where they can integrate another soul into to sharing a body.
Yeah.
Just a technology that even in the future we might have better understanding of and be able to do soul transplants.
It's wild. Yeah. I'm still interested in all the DNA manipulation too that I hear stories about in ancient Egypt, but that's like another
Yeah.
uh book. So I'd be interested in hearing more about that sometime.
Let's do that next time. For tonight, I think we should say goodnight and look forward to our next exchange. And
Yeah.
hopefully, we've helped someone else to think a little differently about their soul tonight.